name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Guitarist Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.guitarist.com, and I'm speaking with the lead singer Mark Allen Lanoue from the band Fiction Stick, or rather Fiction Syxx. And I got it. We were hooked up through a mutual friend of ours named Scott Campbell that you work with in another project, and I got to thank Scott for hooking us up, Mark, because I got to be honest with you, I never heard of your band before, but you sent me a couple tracks from the from your new album that's coming out, and I really dug what I heard. So let's get right into it. So where is the band based out of, and how long has this band been together?
Well, it all started really in 2016, but we're kind of around all over the place, really. I'm in Northwest Arkansas.
Oh, okay, wow.
And other members of the band are in Sacramento, California. There's drummers in Nashville. And the other members are also in California. Our keyboard players in LA. So
you guys are all over the place, and it's kind of interesting that talking to you now, because you were kind of doing a band the modern way that a lot of people have been kind of forced to do this year because of all the lockdown stuff. So you were way ahead of the game, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we're all seasoned musicians, and some of us, a number of us, have been in bigger bands in the past. King Cobra, XYZ, the Babies, and stuff. So, we're just, we try to make it like a band. So when you listen to the material, it probably sounds more like the old days where bands used to get together in the basement, put things together, because we've become really good at doing that.
Yeah.
So.
And let me ask you, Mark, because like you said, some of the other band members kind of got quite a history. I know you're really involved in active on social media, and I can say that because I've seen your name pop up a lot. You're always on social media, and but I wasn't aware that you were of anything you've done prior to this. So let's start off talking a little bit about your history specifically. What have you done before this band that people might be aware of?
Well, sure. Well, I went to the Musicians Institute, but I was also in bands with other players, like the singer from Prophet, and worked with Richie Sambora. He was in a band called Mercy with Richie Sambora.
Oh, wow.
I was in Bonham for a while before the other singer that everybody knows.
Yeah.
I worked with Vinnie Moore. I also was in a band with Carl Sentence called the Persian Risk USA. He's now the singer of Nazareth.
Oh, wow.
And Don Airy. And before that, he sang with Geezer Butler in the Geezer Butler Band.
Oh, amazing.
With Jimmy Bell on guitar, who's with Autograph. And
House of Lords, people know him from, yeah.
And House of Lords. And so, but I also, I've played with a number of different people.
Well, you got quite the resume there. So, but I got to talk, now, as regard to the name, Fiction Syxx, that's a great name, catchy name, and quite original, and I'm kind of like left asking, what is that? It's probably just a name, but I know that's one of the hardest things to do is come up with a band name.
Yeah. Well, the name actually has a meaning.
Great.
My birthday, I was born on 6/6/66.
Wow.
And growing up, coming down from central New Jersey to Mississippi in like 1980 into the Bible Belt, coming as a Yankee, looking the way I did, and having a birthday like that, especially in the 80s. At that point, you go into a store with blue-black hair and spikes and eyeliner, and you hand them your ID to get a beer, and they look at you like you're going to burn them into cinders. But the whole time, really, I have had faith. I was a Christian, and I still am. And so the 6/6/66 has a different historical meaning. It's both the devil's number and the angel's number. It's different than 666. So there's a fiction behind all of this. Everybody has their own thoughts. And ideas.
Wow! I love that. I love that. I mean, that just the story behind the band's name. That is so interesting, because it should be somewhat obvious too. But people hear 666, like you said, they think the number of the beast, and what's interesting is, that is so kind of metal or rock, and I wouldn't even classify you guys as a metal band. You come off to the few songs I've heard, like almost kind of like modern rock, alternative, and it's kind of interesting because even like Kiss fans or anybody's fan of Ozzy Osbourne back in the 70s and the 80s, you'd have these people like banning Kiss concerts and Ozzy concerts because, hey, let's not forget Ozzy bit the head off of a bat, and Kiss stands for Knights in Satan's Service. I mean, people would make all this stuff up, and it's funny because back then people, really believed that stuff, and especially some of the more religious people, they read this stuff in the Bible, and they really take it, literally, that the devil is, 666, the devil's going to come down and, get you. So, I mean, man, that's quite interesting that you thought that name of, because it's so such a rock and roll thing. I mean, people have this image of like what a metalhead is. I don't know, you listen to Ozzy Osbourne or Sabbath or Judas Priest, you're gonna burn in hell,
Yeah. Well, the Y in the Syxx is because I was a Styx fan. When I was younger, I was quite the Styx fan, so I put the Y in there instead of the I.
And it's interesting. That's interesting too, and I'll tell you why. Because when I first looked up on your Facebook page, I seen the band logo and everything, the name, I almost misread it as Fiction Styx, but then I said, no, that's a Y. Yeah, you gotta. I mean, it's interesting because even the logo and the name of the band is so important. I mean, and people, even to help promote the band, because people get so into name and something like that. I said it's such a original name, and like I said, you don't realize sometimes even your eyes play tricks on you. Like I said, oh, it says Fiction Styx. Oh, no, it's Syxx,
Yeah, it doesn't play as much as the Angel logo, but but still, yeah, I get what you're saying. And then we're going to talk more about the new album and the band, but I also want to tell people also about your other project, Farmer Bob, that you and our mutual friend that hooked us up, Scott Campbell, played with you. And then you guys, how would you describe? To me, it's Farmer Bob is kind of like I don't know if you'd call it a tribute project, a tribute band, where you guys like put out these great tribute videos to like other classic rock. But I'll let you talk a little bit about it since you're in it. Yeah, well, Scott's a great guy, really talented as well, and I met him actually through my drummer. We were a mutual friend with Rory, who's the drummer for Fiction Syxx, and so one day Rory called me up and said, "Hey, I got this friend in Orlando. You want to sing on some tracks?" He says, I told him I know a singer, and I was I chuckled and I said, "Yeah, sure, man, I'm into it." So we all got together and we were all joking around, and I said, well, let's just call it Farmer Bob. It's just for fun. We're not making money off, we're paying tribute to great bands, and let's have some fun with it. And so it started, and here we are like a year later, and we've got like 30 tributes on there of all kinds of different bands. It's kind of nice because it challenges us, right? I have to sing different ways and play guitar different ways, and so does Scott and everything else, so it works out nicely. And
besides your involvement in Farmer Bob, the reason I bring it up, we were just talking about social media and branding and how important it is to help promote your band. And the interesting thing with Farmer Bob, which you guys are probably, I'm sure, well aware of by now, initially the Farmer Bob, I was on Facebook one day and your Facebook page just kind of popped up on my feed, and that's how I initially found out about you guys. I tried to go back to the Facebook several times, and you would not believe how many different Farmer Bob Facebook's pages come up. It's almost impossible to believe it, and they're all. You guys are obviously a musical band or project, whatever you want to call it, and there's so many other things not even related to music. And then probably the easiest way for people to find out about you is kind of either through your Reverb Nation, which I really highly suggest people go to, because, like you said, you got all these great classic. I guess you call them covers or like tribute videos. But you do all these great classic. I mean, everything from you guys do a great Nazareth cover. You cover Ozzy, Kiss, Judas Priest, Just a Foreigner. I mean, you guys put out these recent ones of like Saigon Kick, Boston, and see, that's what I dig about what you guys do too. Not only are they great like classic rock tunes you guys are covering, but just the spectrum of artists you cover. I mean, everything, like I said, from Saigon Kick to Boston, it's amazing.
Right, we're on YouTube as well, so YouTube they can get a whole playlist there of all stuff. We're about to release Europe. We did a Europe tune, and we did that. Actually, was kind of fun because we brought the keyboard player from Fiction Syxx into it. So we have 3 members of Fiction Syxx on the Europe. Oh,
interesting, and not to spoil it for anybody, but because I don't even know what Europe tune you guys covered, but Scott was talking about that, and he's telling me, I'll just tell you this much, that it's not the one everybody probably thinks that we covered. It's not the Final Countdown, and I dig that for nothing against the Final Countdown, but I dig it for the fact that you guys didn't go for the obvious choice to cover.
Right. Yeah, we try to stay away from the obvious ones. We try to do something a little different, So
Yeah, like you guys did a great cover of Ozzy's Sato, and that's one of those tunes that really hasn't been overly covered. So, and you do a great. There's like a great tribute that you did not too long ago from the, like a great tribute to the Bee Gees. So you guys cover it all, and it's just interesting. Like I said, coming up with the name, how important is that? Farmer Bob. It seems pretty simple, and we don't really need to get into the meaning behind that band. But like I said, it's amazing. You type in Farmer Bob, and all kinds of things come up. But then that gets people talking too about the band,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You can talk about us or broccoli,
Yeah, and what I mean by that is, people like me, they come across the band, they kind of dig these cool little tribute videos, and they want to go back to the page and, hey, I can't find it, but they're a great band. So everybody tells all their friends, about it.
That's funny.
But now, let's talk about the new album. When is the official release date for your new album?
Well, the official release date was set for February, but we're going to probably end up pushing it out some. It's the pandemic has also made it really kind of rough for when you're doing pre-order campaigns and stuff. So we're going to be putting out a new video here soon for one of the songs I sent you. And so there are some pre-order people out, but Ghost of My Father's Past is the name of the record. It's our third one.
Oh, okay.
Our first one was called Dark Secrets. Our second one was The Alternate Me. The first one, if people like 80s rock, we had a lot of guests on that one too. Bill Leverty from Firehouse, and, Jimmy Bell from House of Lords. And, we had a number of vocalists on there as well as guitarists. Tony the Fretless Monster Franklin played bass on that whole first album. Oh, wow. So it's there's a lot of material out there off our albums. And the third one, we're going to be going after another Grammy run because we believe we have some really excellent songs in this one as well.
Yeah, I was reading that on your official page. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, as far as is there anything that fans can do to help you get the Grammy nod, or is it more like the campaign of people just hearing your music?
Well, it's important that people get the word out, because the more people that come and the more people that click and subscribe and all that kind of stuff, and the more people that buy and pre-order and that kind of stuff, more people that stream on Spotify. But, it also comes down to voting. Yeah. It's voting members in the Recording Academy that really vote on it first, but it does help when it's out there and people know about it.
And that I would imagine why when you got somebody like a Tony Franklin or a Jim Bell playing on your album, they got their own little fan base to start with. So that helps, if they're already members, I would imagine, in the industry, and that if they want to help get the band some votes, they can do so.
Yeah, well, we have some really smoking members now. The new bass player who's been with us since the second record, his name is Larry Hart. He played with Montrose and King Cobra. Oh, yeah. Really smoking player. J.K. Northrup, he played with King Cobra at XYZ and multiple others. We have the drummer, Rory Fashion, who is a smoking drummer. He was an honor grad from the Musicians Institute. And Eric Ranyo played with just about everybody.
Really like Larry Hart. I had the privilege of interviewing him, a number of years ago when, right after Ronnie Montrose died. But anyways, he's one of those great kind of players that's really kind of remained under the radar. I mean, a lot of people don't know much about him except, he played with Ronnie Montrose. But I mean, just one of the all-time greatest musicians, and it's great to have somebody like of his caliber, playing in the band. And J.K. Northrup, same thing. I got to say. I've been aware of who this guy is. I mean, not just from King Cobra, but he if you go on the web to the official site, he's put out all these great solo albums, projects over the years. I mean, he's just such a great, kind of underrated in my eyes, like underrated guitar hero. I don't know why he hasn't. He's been around and people know who he is. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like I don't know how he never got to the caliber of a Warren DeMartini or something.
Well, he's very diverse. He's also a hell of a slide player. He produces all of our stuff. He has a studio called Alien Productions.
Oh yeah.
He's just really all around a very talented guy. But they're all great guys.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I just bring up these guys because I know a little bit about who they are, and it's like the fact that you have guys of that caliber involved. That says something, first of all, about your band, your music, and like I said, I haven't had a chance to hear the whole album of the few songs. Then I did go on YouTube. I checked out some of the songs from the previous albums, and I was pretty impressed. And this was the question I had, Mark. I was like, man, first of all, thank you, Scott Campbell, for hooking me and Mark up. But how is it that I've not heard of this band before? How has this band been able to stay so under the radar? But I'm hoping with as I imagine you are, with the new CD, that more people are going to even be more aware of you.
It's a matter of people getting the word out like you're doing right now. We have the big powers that be that talk about lots of music, but it's usually the older bands, and they don't introduce a lot of the newer bands into the network. So it's up to the fans and the people to spread the word to get them talking about us so that we can get out there.
And in that regards, like you said, the pandemic and all the lockdown stuff has really changed the music industry right now in a huge way, because depending on where you are, for the most part, bands are not really able to get out there and play live too much. So I was curious, like, how much in the past were you guys, being so spread out, have you been able to do a lot of live shows to promote the previous albums?
Well, we were wanting to do a couple of shows, like the festivals and stuff.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, a lot of that went south, obviously. With COVID, and but when everything starts back up again, we would love to do a couple of those bigger shows. We can't do a tour or anything, because obviously we're family members. We have day jobs, but I would love to play live again. The last big gig I did was Rocklahoma, and when you're in front of that many people, it's always just a high. So I'd love to get out and play and in front of people again and serve up our music for our fans.
And see now you guys, if and when that time arises, you got 3 albums worth of material now.
Exactly.
And so, like, how hard is that going to be, like, for when the time comes to start doing live shows? To come up with because for many people this will be the first time seeing your band. Even if you do like these little one-off shows, like you said, because you're so spread out. But how hard is that going to be come up with a set list?
Well, I am proud to have members that we have. I'm actually quite honored to have them, and together we've created some really great music. And it would probably be really hard to pick from it, because they're not only that, is the songs really mean something. Whenever I write, and then J.K. writes with me on a number of them as well. There's a storyline there. They all mean something, and they all have some connection. So. So anyway. So
when you guys get into like a writing session, being that you're kind of not like right down the street from each other, how does that usually work? Like, do you send files back and forth? You do something on a video chat, or what's the process when you get into writing?
Well, we have it down to a science now. Typically, I'll start off with a framework of a song. Usually a rough guitar and a guide vocal, and I send it to the drummer. The drummer maps it out so it's all properly in time, and then I re-record the guitars usually. I send it all to JK, then he does his magic. If he feels there's a writing place in there where he can make something better, he does, and he usually has a great feel for that. Once that's together, we send it back to Rory for the solid drums, the final drums, once we know how everything's arranged and it's going to be. And then it goes to the rest of the people, and then JK does his magic on, producing it, engineering it, mastering it, that kind of stuff. So we've kind of got it down to a science where it's like being in a room. So we kind of massage it, work it out. But, that's pretty much how we do it now. Yeah,
that's interesting. That's kind of how you build the house, so to speak. I mean, and a lot of people may fail to realize that, musically, like when you're recording a song and everything, pretty much everything starts with the drummer, and then you work your way up.
Yeah, well, he's got a way of mapping things out. So, and we do it in a way where he gets to put his flair on it. So by starting off with electronic drums, and when he comes back later with the full song with all the vocals and everything, he knows where he can play fills. So he can feel free to play whatever he wants at the end.
Oh, that's so cool. That's now like obviously when you're playing with a guitar player like J.K. that can kind of do it all, as you were saying. Obviously, you play guitar too, and you're a singer in that, and probably the singing is your main thing. But like when you guys are recording the tracks, like do you put guitar on on the CD as well, or is that you just do that live? Or the reason I'm asking is like how do you guys go about splitting up who plays what guitar part is just he's gonna play all the flashy leads because he's the lead player, or what?
No, actually, we are kind of like the Judas Priest, Iron Maiden.
Great, I love that.
The dual guitarists. We have different styles, but if you listen to the solos, you can hear where we trade off. Some songs he plays only, I play only on some. But all the slide is JK. He typically does a lot of the bridge stuff because he's just really great at that. But we both play guitar on the album.
Oh, great! I love it. I mean, all my favorite bands, had all those two great guitar, at least two guitar players in the band,
Right.
I mean, Motley Crue maybe being one of the exceptions, Mick Mars is pretty much doing it all, but I used to love bands like that, where they'd be trading off, and I mean, Judas Priest is a perfect example, and then even Iron Maiden now, they got three guitar players just for a simple fact, when the old guitar player came back to the band, they didn't want to kick out the new guy, but it kind of fattened up the sound,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was when I was younger, I liked Motley Crue. They're a totally different style of band. They're your party rock and roll kind of band, which is fine.
And Mick Mars really didn't get the credit due, I feel, as a guitar player. What I mean is, maybe in all these years, I can only remember him appearing on the cover of Guitar World magazine or something like that one time. But when we find out years later what that guy was going through, and all the pain he went through, playing on stage every night, what he put himself through, it's amazing,
Yeah, well, he was a perfect fit for Motley Crue. There's certain players that they fit very well within the scenario of where they are.
Yeah,
he's definitely that one. So.
And I've heard him talk over years, and he was saying, really before Motley Crue, I've always been more of a blues player. I had to kind of learn to play rock guitar to fit into Motley Crue, but he made it work. And I have a couple more questions before we wrap it up, Mark. And we're talking a little bit about bands, everybody's being locked down and not being able to get out there and perform live right now. So my question to you guys, since you're also spread, if you guys, even just to help promote the CD when it comes out, if you give any thought to doing any kind of streaming events, or even having a Q&A or something, showing video maybe on online or something for people to check out, because people they either love it or they don't, as far as these streaming events online.
Yeah, we're probably going to try some of those things, and our record label MR Records is working on some of those kind of things too. They're making they're connecting with other groups that have different media outlets and stuff like that. So we're looking to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, Melodic Rock Records. Were you guys at all associated, up until maybe 2 or 3 years, there's a site called melodicrock.com, and I think they had a record company through that site. Is that the same label that you guys are associated with?
We were with them, Andrew McNeese. We were with them at the time for our first 2 records, but that has been passed on to a different group.
Okay.
There's still melodicrock.com with Andrew, and I would send people there to go and read his stuff. He still puts out stuff about music and stuff like that. So he's our mate. We still have a good relationship. It's just we're now with a different group that's in Australia who's taken over the label, and so we're with them now.
I was kind of interested to hear that because I used to go on that site all the time. I used to what I used to love is they'd update the site daily, and it was a real popular site. And they've I just want to say I wasn't even aware they were still around. It seemed like they kind of went under, or not as mainstream as they used to be, but it's good to hear they're still around doing what they do.
I think he went to a patronage kind of thing now. A lot of people are. But I believe he's still doing something with that. I would look around and
find out
what he's doing.
And it's interesting because, again, getting back to a band's name and labeling and branding. I mean, people hear Melodic Rock Records, for example, and immediately they're going to think, oh, it's a bunch of mellow, soft rock artists. But if anybody listens to the the music you guys do, it's anything but that, you know. No, it's
that's why we call ourselves progressive melodic hard rock. Basically, we have so many influences over the years that we can dial it one way or the other, but we don't like to label ourselves too much because we are Fiction Syxx and we're different. We're not just a melodic rock band.
Yeah.
So
and I got to ask you, getting back to the name and the band and everything. Who came up with like the logo? It's a cool looking logo.
Actually, that's an artist in Sweden. They go by Black Mark, but his name is Andre Bexton, I think.
Okay.
And he does some great art. He's done stuff for Iron Maiden and a bunch, Judas Priest and a bunch of other people. He's a really good artist. So, but he came up with that logo.
Wow, that's amazing. And again, talking about the power of the internet, Mark. I mean, does it amaze you? Like, you're sitting in your little room right now as we're sitting there talking, and United States, and then you must get messages every day, like people checking your band out on the internet. Probably forget about the United States, but parts of the world that you never ever even stepped foot in, and that's got to just bog your mind. Hey, got this little CD we making here in the United States, and they're checking it out, around the world.
Yeah, I love it. I've traveled around the world as well, and I just love cultures, love people, and the more people that are exposed to music that like it, the better I feel. That's what we do it for, right? Yeah,
and as far as your own personal influences, who were the bands or, especially the singers that influenced you when you were growing up to do what you're doing?
Well, it was an interesting course for me, actually. I liked all kinds of bands when I was younger, including AC/DC and Styx and Kiss, and just like all the other kids. Judas Priest was big for me, and then I went into Queensryche. But I originally started off on tenor saxophone. I was a saxophone player.
Wow.
In concert and marching all the way through college. And I started the guitar late. I was 17 when I started playing guitar.
Wow.
I was just a natural at it. And I didn't know I could sing really until much later. I started taking vocal lessons from Jenny Lane's vocal teacher, who was Ron Feldman, rest his soul. But, and then once I started to know I could sing, then I started stepping up to the mic, and I was encouraged to do that. So
I mean, amazing. That was going to be my next question. Like, were you originally a singer or a guitar player first? Because a lot of people, kind of fall into it. Now, when you wanting to become a singer, was it more just like, well, I'm writing songs, I kind of want to sing my own songs rather than have another guy do it, or?
No, I think it was a little bit of everything. The vocal teacher said, "What are you doing just playing guitar? You have a fantastic voice. I could hear it from the background. You singing behind the other guy."
Wow.
And so I started, singing more, and over time I realized, hey, I can do this, and I write, and so I'll just go ahead and sing. So that's kind of how it came about. I mean, there's some really great singers out there. I can still be a lot better.
Well, you're pretty good. You're pretty good at what you do. But I will tell people that. But I love you have that attitude. There's no ego. In the sense that I love the fact that you got that attitude. I'm pretty good at what I do, but I can still become a better singer. I mean, that allows you the opportunity to kind of grow and become a better musician. I mean, you always want to be better at what you're doing. Who doesn't?
That's right. You can learn from anyone, and so I try to learn from others the best I can. I learn from the people that are in Fiction Syxx all the time, so it's an ongoing process.
And as far as when you first became a singer, I was curious, like, when it's one thing to learn how to play the guitar and you're up there on stage and you're doing your thing, but when you're not friend of the band, you got somebody else kind of center stage and you can kind of just do your thing playing the guitar. I mean, when you transitioned to becoming a frontman and being in the lead singer spot as well as playing guitar, I mean, how long would you say it took before you kind of really felt confident in your ability? Hey, I can do this.
Yeah, well, most of the time I've always been pretty confident in what I do, but I did feel naked at first. I always had the guitar, so it's like, what do you do with your hands?
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing, and that took a little while, and you can even see in my videos, starting off with Given Sight, I didn't know what to do with my hands. It was like, I look like the father from Saturday Night Live, dressed up in black, and moving my hands around like I was pounding down a nail into a piece piece of wood. And so, but now I've gotten a lot better at, if you know, once you see the new video coming out, I'm a lot more comfortable not having the guitar strapped around, and I can get up there and play and sing too if I need to. But, I always like to see singers who weren't playing all the time, because it allowed them to kind of, you know, perform for the crowd. You know,
I mean that's one of the things I love about a band like Kiss. I mean, while Gene and Paul are the primary, you know, lead singers, you don't have the same guy singing all the songs all the time. You know, they kind of trade off.
Right.
And even as and you know, Janie Lane, you mentioned. I mean, what a that's another guy really, you know, left us way too young, and really never got his due. I mean, people like to, you know, bag on the guy, but I mean, he was the ultimate songwriter, if anything. Forget about his singing for just a minute. I mean, that guy wrote some of the greatest rock tunes ever, so much that, you know, on those first 3 Warren albums, I mean, that's the classic stuff that everybody loves to hear. Those are the songs the other Warren guys are still, you know, singing in concert to this day. Yeah, they got Robert Mason. He's a great singer in his own right. But, I mean, pretty much Janie's family's allowed those guys, because those are Janie's tunes. I mean, they're Warren songs, you know, but they've kind of allowed them to, if they weren't able to play those tunes, you know, and they're just living off the stuff they did with Robert Mason, I mean, I don't think you'd have as many people going to the shows. It's just the quality of his writing was that good, you know.
Yeah, plus Janie had really nice tone on his voice, and I would say that he had some really good songs he did write, and really he was a drummer first. And so was the singer from Queensryche, Todd Torre. He was a drummer first too. So you know, so you never know where they're going to come from.
I mean, people might be surprised to learn even I know about Steven Tyler was a drummer too. A lot of these great guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, because you mentioned Todd Latour just now, and he has, I think, he has a solo album coming out on Rat Pack Records next month. So and I've heard a little bit about some of the stuff off of it. It's pretty good. But I was curious, being a Queensryche fan, you mentioned. Do you have a preference for the original Queensryche versus the current version?
I like the original Queensryche only because, just like you mentioned with the songs, the songs, and Jeff, of course, had a certain tonality to his voice when he was younger. Yeah. You know, Todd, don't get me wrong. Yeah. Great replacement. He has a monstrous voice. Yeah. And I like him. I like his singing. Yeah. You know, but at the same token, it's kind of like, you know, the guy from Journey has a great voice, and he's probably the best emulation of Steve. But if you listen to the phrasing, he's not Steve. Yeah. So it always comes down to that. You know, the original. It's hard to follow the original because they were the pioneers of that space. Yeah. So I mean, you know, sometimes you get lucky and you get a singer that steps and you go, it's better. Like look at Iron Maiden, right? Oh yeah, that was two totally different singers, but obviously their biggest hits came out of Bruce. Than Paul, right? Yeah, and it's interesting when you bring up Queensryche, because I would say Queensryche started out as a metal band, but of course when they started having you know, MTV success and your stuff being played on the radio, they were almost like a pop band at one point. They've done everything metal, and then I'd say they're more of a metal band now with Todd. But just to bring your point up about Todd Latour, I mean, on the latest album they put out, Scott Rockenfell, he left the band at that point. They were without a drummer, so Todd Latour, he also plays the drums on the new Queensryche album, right. In case people don't know that. So a lot of those bands fall victim to a lot of things, but they've done very well since. Like, for instance, Chris DeGarmo was a major piece of their great writing, and when he left, you could notice a change. But they still held up, and they still write good songs, and they're still a good band. But, you know, and it's the same thing like with Guns N' Roses. When Izzy left, you could tell that, you know, his writing was not there anymore. But, you know, you know, that stuff happens.
And it's interesting. It's interesting. Like, you know, Izzy Stradlin did not have like an overly successful solo career, but if you go and you check out any of his solo records he's put out since leaving Guns N' Roses, I mean, he's really got a huge Keith Richards sound to what he does. You know, I mean, and if you listen to any of his solo records. I mean, he's a pretty decent lead singer, and also I'd say Izzy's one of the best songwriters I've ever heard. I mean, because I mean, you know, one of my favorite songs he ever did is off his first solo album. It's called shuffle at all, but it's a real bluesy kind of sounding tune. Doesn't sound too much like Guns N' Roses, I mean, but you listen to any of his albums he's put out, and just great songwriter.
Yeah, it just comes down to chemistry.
Yeah.
When you have certain people that are plugged together, that chemistry, one might be bluesy, one might be
metal,
but so.
And then final thing before we wrap it up, you were mentioning about the current pandemic, and that puts kind of a situation a lot of bands are now. A lot of bands have the position of like, well, we're not going to even because everything's going on. We can't tour. We're not going to bother putting out any new music. Probably people aren't going to buy it. I mean, last year we had Bon Jovi. They delayed their album until like November. Well, we better finally release it. We're going to call it 2020. But what's your attitude as far as that? Like, I mean, are you guys thinking about, well, we're going to release this new album, this year, or we don't know, or?
No, we're gonna release it as soon as it's all done. The fact of the matter is that, we do this because we love it. We have fans. We would love for them to buy the music and support us. But at the end of the day, we're musicians, and that's what we do. And we create music, and we hope that you love it. We hope everybody loves it. But that's just part of our soul. It's part of our spirit. So.
And any idea you were talking about putting out a video or releasing a single for one of these tracks off a new album? Is there a target date for that to drop?
It's going to be any time now. We're waiting for the record label to finish the video, and then we'll be releasing it. We're going to use it in front of the next year's Grammys as well to start pushing the song out there to get people interested. And we hope that they dig it.
Yeah,
some people might not, but hopefully more than not.
I mean, hopefully they'll allow you to do your little campaign to get your Grammy nod, because I heard the Grammys have even been pushed back to when it's going to get aired this year. Maybe not till March. Let's hope it's not that much longer.
True. Yeah. So, but yeah, I do. We love music. I love music, and I plan on doing it for as long as God will let me do it. So.
Yeah, I bet. So, so when you guys wrote this new album, do you already have material written that you're going to present to the band, or do you wait till it's till everyone's ready to go and start writing?
No. Some stuff is I write it right from the cusp. Other times I've written stuff right at the microphone.
Wow.
It really just depends on when what calls for the song. I might have an idea. I might have a riff that grows from there. Then a lot of times I'll send a rough demo around to the guys, and they'll add their 2 cents in the stuff, and or their 5 cents, just depending on what it needs. And we go from there. Some songs I write completely from the beginning.
Wow.
Other songs are changed a bit, and other writers step in at that point. Like J.K. on some of these new songs rewrote the chorus melodies and stuff. Same lyrics. He redid some. He redoes the guitars and changes the melody up a little bit sometimes. So anything to make the songs better.
Now, talking inspiration as far as what your lyrics are about. Do you typically, like you said, I guess you got different instances, but do you typically go in the studio, just step up to the mic and see what comes out? Or do you ever write, as far as your lyrics, do you ever get ideas like, I want to write a song about the story I heard on the news last night, or I went, I had something I experienced in life, my friend died or whatever, and I want to write a song about...
It's all the above. Yeah. It's all the above. It depends on the situation. So, like for instance, a song on the called "Your Promised Land" off the first record. That is about my father being murdered when I was 10.
Oh wow!
And so that's about that. And then so other songs like "Given Sight" and the ones you've heard. Those are about spiritual sensitives, people who are sensitive to spirit. And then, so there's lots of different storylines. Angel of Mine is about a friend of mine who had a daughter who's been very ill, and he thought maybe there was a chance of her passing. It was so bad, so I wrote Angel of Mine for them.
Wow.
So, it just really depends.
And let me ask, when your friend heard that song, did you kind of tell him that, hey, this is about your daughter? And if so, what was his thoughts?
it really touched him. So
Yeah, I would imagine so. And
he was very moved.
as I'm sure you don't need anybody. I mean, having your father murdered, I mean that's quite a thing to experience at any age, you know. And
well,
yeah,
on the streets of Jersey, you know, my father was involved with the mafia.
Oh wow.
So you know, when you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So I was 10, and he was gunned down in Clifton, New Jersey, in 1977.
Well, yeah. The only reason I bring that up is because I mean that's quite a thing to experience in your life, and you know, and like you write that song about your father dying the way it affected you, but at the same time, I bet you've had other people listen to that song, maybe based on their own life experience, think the song was about something else, and
all the time.
And you probably got that attitude like, hey, that's not what the song's about, but hey, that's what you got out of it, great, you know?
Well, hey, it becomes what it's about to them.
Yeah.
So if it touches them and they can equate that to a feeling they have, and you know, and they that's how they accept it. That's fine with me. It's, you know,
and see, this is when music goes a little beyond just being music. I mean, it's like you said, it's their interpretation, and I imagine no matter if you're you're writing a script for a movie or you're a songwriter, if somebody else gets something else out of what you've created, it's got to be wow man, wow they got that out there. Oh, wow, that's amazing.
That's right, and at the end of the day, that's the stuff that makes us feel good about what we do. Right?
Because it tells you, even though it's their interpretation, it tells you that your music touched them, your song touched this person. It meant something more than just being another song on the album.
That's right, and that's the course of action. That's our mission. That's what we try to do.
And that's why, like, you're talking about all these bands that influenced you. That's why a lot of these bands, are still around all these years later. Because I mean, you could have a band, as you know, Mark, with 4 or 5 great-looking guys. But if that's all you got, you're not going to go too far. The bands that last, have the legacy and they last all these years. Like a Queensryche, for example, or is because they've got great songs. I mean, these songs at this point have become like the soundtrack to our lives, as far as the bands we grew up on. There's a reason I'm still listening to Queen music and Kiss music and Motley Crue music. I mean, it was more than just Motley Crue's a great party band. I mean, Nikki Syxx, if you know anything about him, that's what he's known for. He's a great songwriter. I mean, he's known more for his songwriting than his bass playing, but that's what all these bands have in common. I mean, Kiss gets, people say about Kiss, they're not the greatest musicians, but you know what? They've got songs that have been playing on the radio for 50 years, so they're doing something right,
There's a lot to be said about a really good song. So
yeah, I mean, rock
it starts with that first anyway.
Yeah,
I love the fact that we're excellent musicians in this band. I love the fact that I can sing all these different different styles with these different vocalists. But at the end of the day, none of that matters if the song doesn't capture the hearts.
And that's why just listening to a few tracks of yours that I've listened to so far, and you tell me that when you call somebody to guest on your album or whatever, that you have none of these people have turned you down because the caliber of the music is just that good. And the fact that a J.K. Northrup or a Jim Bell or Tony Franklin be willing to play on your album, that says, hey, this stuff is up to par,
Yeah, that feels good in itself because, quite frankly, it was really great for Tony to play on it because Tony was one of my favorites from when I was younger. He was, obviously he's a smoking bass player, and I always loved the fretless, and he just makes it sing. So one of the things Tony was involved with, as I'm sure you know, he had this little band with Carmine Appice and John Syxx. They did one album together, but. Yeah, again, that's one of those albums that people are still talking about, 30 years later. Yeah, Blue Murder was an excellent band, and I loved a lot of their material. I would agree with you.
And Tony Franklin, people forget he also had a little band with Jimmy Page called The Firm.
Radioactive, that's right. The vocalist Paul Rogers from Bad Company,
Yeah. Well, Mark, I want to thank you for taking time talking to me. I've enjoyed getting to know you. The interview we did today, I think it's going to go up in early February because we just posted all of our stuff for January. But since I've done the interview today with you, I get up in early February. I'll let you know the minute it gets posted. And let's keep in touch because maybe once the album officially drops, and I've had a chance to hear about other stuff on the album, maybe we could do a follow-up interview talking specifically about the new CD and the songs on there.